Robert, returning to bed after a mid-sleep bathroom break, heard a knock at his door. He paused for a moment and looked at the clock on the nightstand. It is very much 3 a.m., the man thought. I am not answering that. It is probably the wind anyway. Robert ignored the knocking and went back under his covers to return to the dream he was having about his job burning down and getting tomorrow off. But there was another knock. He continued to ignore. And then more knocking, getting louder and louder until finally he thrusted the covers off his body and ran downstairs to see who the hell bothers someone at 3 a.m. As he reached the door, some sense finally came to him. It's 3 a.m. and someone is banging on my door. He paused for a second and went to grab his gun from the top of his coat closet. Maybe someone's in trouble, or maybe it's someone looking to cause trouble. Robert hid the gun on his side and opened the door. But darkness was all he was greeted with. He peeked his head out the door and looked both ways, and nothing. No one, no wind, no animal, just darkness. He closed the door and went to put his gun back. Then he heard a knock. This time it sounds like it is coming from the kitchen window. Now he begins to get nervous. Before he was boldened by his sleepless state. But now he's aware of what's going on. All the lights are off in the house, and he slowly creeps to the kitchen, to the window where the knocking is happening. He opens the window and yells, "Who the hell is it?" But no answer, just a branch blowing in the wind. He closed the window back and stopped to take a breather. His heart is racing now. The fear is starting to set in, so he goes to the fridge to grab some water to calm himself as he goes to take a sip. Another knock, this time from the back door. The man runs to the back door and quickly throws the door open, causing it to hit his backlight and breaking it. But still only darkness is there to greet him. He quickly closes the door and goes to sit in the living room. Fear is starting to get a hold of him, and his hands are shaking. He lives on the outskirts of town, nothing but nature around him. The knocking could be anything, wind, animals. He starts to think this and calms down. So he heads back upstairs to go back to sleep. Anxiety just happened to get the best of him this time. As he goes to lay down, a shiver goes down his spine, knocking, knocking, sounding as if it's coming from everywhere. It's getting louder and louder. He falls to his knees, putting his hands over his ears. But still it won't drown the knocking out. He goes to scream and suddenly, nothing, silence, no knocking, no wind, no anything. Only the sound of the doorbell. The doorbell is a welcoming sound. It must be someone from town. His doorbell is ringing at this time at night. His doorbell is ringing at this time of night. Who would be ringing the doorbell at this time? Is it the same person who was knocking on the door? He doesn't want to answer, but it rings and rings and rings again. Fuck, he yells as he grabs his gun. I'm coming, I'm coming. Just wait a moment. He gets to the door and takes a second to take a deep breath and gather himself. Then the ringing stops, and instead another knock at the door. Once again the door flies open, and what's standing there is darkness and nothing more. He grabs his head. What the hell did I miss? Because all he sees as he looks out is darkness, that's it. Fuck this, someone is playing tricks, so closes his door and walks out into darkness abyss. He begins walking down a dark path, and there's a misty rain outside as he crept down the path. He jumps out of his skin as he sees a silhouette. He stares at it, but can't make out what it is. Slowly, one foot in front of the other, he creeps up. He cocks his gun and begins asking questions. Hello, was it you that knocked on my door? I didn't answer because it's late and I was trying to fucking sleep. Then you pressed my doorbell and kept knocking, but when I opened the door, no one was there. Why are you playing games so late at night? As he got closer and closer, he clenched the gun tighter. He pushed some branches out the way and pointed his gun, but there was nothing there. But there's a light in the distance, another house with its porch light on. The man didn't remember another house being there. He swears he was the only house in this part of the town. Could it have been them that was toying with me? Even if it wasn't, maybe they saw someone out here. Enough thinking, he goes to the house and begins to knock. The man knocked twice and waited a moment. The light is off now, but it was definitely on as I walked up. They must still be up. No way they fell asleep that quickly. He knocked once more, still no answer. They must be up, so the man makes his way to the side and then knocks on the window. He waits a moment, still no movement. The rain is starting to make him feel cold, and he looks and sees a back door. He quickly rushes to the door and knocks twice more, louder than usual. They surely heard that. Even if they were asleep, they have to be awake now. But still no one, so he makes his way back to the front. Why won't they answer? Whoever my neighbor is must be a bastard. Anger got the best of him, but he took in breath and calmed down. The events of the night just has him on edge. As he walks about to the front, he sees a doorbell. How lucky, he thinks. How did I miss it the first time? He rings the doorbell a couple times and no one answers. And then knocks once more, still ignored. Well, whoever lives here, I must have missed them, and he turns back to walk into darkness abyss. Terence and Holly, a couple just getting back from a game night with friends, are heading off to bed. As they begin to slip off their clothes to get ready for bed, there's a knock at the door. "Holly, did you hear knock?" Terence asked. Holly, still a little buzzed, says she didn't hear anything and May Terence is drunk. Terence doesn't think much of it. It's late and maybe the wind's just blowing. Then another knock and another, each one louder than the next. Now Holly notices and is a bit worried. Terence thinks maybe they forgot something at their friend's house and Hay brought it. He goes down and opens the door, but no one is there. Maybe I really am drunk, he thinks, then makes his way back up the stairs to bed. But then there's a knock at the window. Now he's getting creeped out. Terence slowly creeps towards the window and flashes his phone's flashlight, but no one is there. Now a knock from the back door. Terence, annoyed, dashes to the back door, and once he gets there, once again no one's there, just darkness to greet. Ding dong, he hears the ring of the doorbell. Terence doesn't know what to think. He grabs his bat in the hallway closet and slowly approaches the door. He swings it open with a shout, but still there's no one. Holly now comes downstairs asking what's wrong. She heard the doors opening and closing. Terence explains someone is playing pranks and he's going outside to see what's going on. Terence rushes outside, bat in hand, and begins to walk down the path. Soon Terence realized his mistake of walking into the darkness with just a baseball bat and nothing else. He lives out in the woods and there's no lights, just pitch black. He could just start wildly swing his bat, but all he will hit is a tree and not much else. Still, he continued walking down the path and he sees a silhouette in the distance. He slow approaches and yells. Terence raises his bat and Robert raises his gun. Terence drops his bat and now just his hands are raised. "Please don't shoot," Terence pleads. Then Robert lowers his gun. "Was it you who was at my home knocking on the door, the window, ringing my doorbell?" Terence tells him it wasn't him, but someone just did the same at his house. Robert explains that it was him that did it at his house. He didn't know someone else lived out in the woods and wanted to ask if they saw anyone. Terence as well thought no one else lived in these woods and that he had never known another house until now. But there's another problem. Robert told Terence he should have made it back home by now. He's been walking the path for 10 minutes, yet has not gotten any closer to his house. Terence, suspicious, asked Robert what way did he walk. Robert explained that he only walked straight the entire time, and yet he cannot get back. Terence said he will bring him back to his house, but he has to give him the gun. Robert, untrusting as well, simply takes out the mag and tosses it. Terence and empties the bullet in the chamber as well. Reassured, Terence starts to lead the way back to his house. They walk for what seems like 30 minutes, but never make it back to Terence's house. It's weird Terence only ran a short distance. He should have at least seen the porch light by now. But nothing, just darkness, no matter how much they walk forward. They both begin to worry and Terence takes his phone to call Holly. There's no signal, the call won't go through. They both begin to worry, but suddenly they see a light and a house in the distance. Robert and Terence creep up to the house, the light is on, and you can see through windows. There's no one there. It's an empty house. Robert explains he's already been through this twice and tells Terence that they should look around first. They go to the side of the house and look through the window and see a kitchen. Robert looks confused. Terence asks what's wrong. Robert explains that this kitchen looks exactly like his. Having similar things isn't that uncommon, I guess. He thinks and ignores it. But still they see no one in the house. Then they walk towards the back of the house, to which Terence sees a kayak and a couple bikes in the back. Terence explains the bikes and kayak looks the same as the ones he has at home. There is only one outdoor shop in the town. If he bought them through the same shop, then it makes sense. Still, they see no evidence that someone may be home, and why would they leave the lights on? Are they scared of the dark? Then why live in such a dark forest? Even if they are afraid, the waste of energy is ridiculous. The two make their way back to the front door, and Terence goes to knock. Robert grabs his hand and waves his finger. "Told you I've been through this a couple times." Robert looks and sees a doorbell. He presses the button and hears a loud ding. But it sounds as if the ringing is coming from outside the house as well as inside. They wait a moment and hear someone walking towards the door. Then the door slowly creeps open.